Welcome back to Daily Flash. I'm Riesa Pascal along with Mitch English. Now, we recently talked about how coloring can help reduce stress and anxiety. What about poetry? Mental health advocate Kyli Santiago is raising awareness about the healing power of poetry and how people, especially women, can actually overcome emotional trauma and reclaim their strength. This is all laid out in her award-winning collection titled Healing Yesterday's Tears. Here with us now is Kyli Santiago. Kyli, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
No, thank you for joining us. I love this topic, poetry. I've written a little bit of for
Okay.
myself, but nowhere near the quality I'm sure yours is. Tell us how you came to realize that writing poetry was so healing.
Well, I suffered from chronic depression as a child all the way into my adult years. And at a certain point, depression just became overwhelming. It stopped me from living a normal life and pursuing my goals. So I said to myself, you know what? Enough is enough. And I became determined to beat this mental illness and take control of my emotional and mental well being. So I turned to creative outlets and I began to journal. I had journaled in the past, so I knew its benefits. However, as I continued to journal, I realized I was actually stimulating a cycle of negative thought patterns. So I gave myself the challenge of only writing poetry. And
Hmm.
when I wrote out what was bothering me in a poetic way, it was like the pain and the emotional trauma that I was experiencing was unlocked. And I felt a sense of peace and relief I had never felt before.
I love that. And now you're using what you reclaimed from that to help others. Tell us about your mission to help women reclaim their power. Why was that important to you after what you went through?
Exactly. Well, it's very important for me to help women regain their power and empower women because what I noticed as a woman is that from the time we're young girls, we're taught to adhere to societal conditions that program us to stay small, weak, and submissive. And this is very damaging to a young girl's self esteem. Now, those young girls grow into women with low self worth, who then become mothers to daughters who are destined to repeat the same
Mhm.
vicious cycle. So it's my mission to help women use the power of poetry to tap into their inner strength, find their voice, and reclaim their power.
Yes, I love that. Powerful. For someone who has never written a poem, maybe someone at home who's thinking, I'd like to heal through poetry. How do they start? I know you have a poetry for healing process. Can you share the first acronym, A?
Sure. A is actually acknowledge that the pain and the trauma exists. Because when you acknowledge something negative exists, you take its power away.
All right. And then after acknowledging, we need to confront. How does someone confront those issues?
You confront the true emotions of that experience by writing it in a poem. The poem doesn't have to be complex or flowery in any way. It can be very simple. And you can say things like, this is what happened to me. This is how it damaged me. And this is how it hurt me.
All right. So we've acknowledged our issue, we've confronted it on paper, and now we need to reframe. How does one go about doing that?
How you frame the event is actually include an aspect of healing, empowerment, or growth within your poem. So say something like, you know what, this happened to me, but this is how I grew from it. This is how I'm stronger because of it. And this is how I'm reclaiming my power.
Nice. I love you touched on this is why I'm stronger because I think
Yes,
part of feeling that strength is releasing, right? So tell us about the
exactly.
last one, that release.
Exactly. Release that pain and trauma by repeating and reciting that poem that you've written to yourself over and over and over again. And what you're actually doing by doing this is feeding your subconscious mind the new, empowering, positive, reframed interpretation of that event.
Wow, that is powerful. I love those acronyms. Let's talk about how your book helps us with self-worth and self-esteem.
Sure. I made sure that each poem in Healing Yesterday's Tears paved a path for empowerment and encouragement for women. So it actually empowers and encourages women to acknowledge the pains that we face and then meet those challenges head on and then actually advocate for ourselves, have compassion for ourselves, and set boundaries for ourselves.
All right. I want to go back to something you were saying earlier. A poem doesn't have to be this complicated thing. I know sometimes we tend to think it has to be these rhymes, like everything has to
Right.
rhyme, everything has to be so eloquent and flowing into each other. How does one go about if they don't feel like they have that eloquence for writing a poem?
Actually, like in my book, Healing Yesterday's Tears, my poetry is very straightforward. I use very forward language. Of course, certain things can be flowery, but just really honestly, what it is in tapping into that emotion, especially when you're writing poetry for healing. There's tons of things on the internet that can help you learn how to write imagery and
Hmm.
metaphors and similes, but the emotion is what is very important when you're writing for healing.
So important. Kylie, where can we go for more information and to get a copy of your book?
For more information, your viewers can go to KyliSantiago.com, and my book is available on Amazon.com and wherever books are sold.
Excellent. Healing Yesterday's Tears with Kylie Santiago. Thank you for your time. This has been a really informative interview. We appreciate you.
Thank
For those
you.
of you at home, make sure you go to KylieSantiago.com, learn all about poetry. We'll be back with more Daily Flash right after this.